Hello and welcome to another video, and welcome to my reading list for February. In this video I will mostly be talking about what I could potentially read for the TBR reading spa. If you have no idea what that is, it's a very relaxed read along that I, along with my friend Kerry, whose channel will be linked in the description box below, but we are running this in 2026 just as a way to kind of encourage everyone to just approach the books on their shelves in a really relaxed way, in a really chilled out, zero pressure, easy way. So there will be links to everything in the description box, the announcement videos if you haven't seen those, and also where you can download the image for the prompts for February. You can actually download all 12 months if you want, but if you want to just do it month by month, the link to the February one will be in the description box below. I'm just moving things so I can grab my books here. So the only other thing I probably will read in February is the book for the Read Good Challenge, which I believe, if I've remembered correctly, for February is to read an Australian author. And for that, I have Shirley Hazzard and The Transit of Venus. I got this in my book advent calendar, and I still have a little slip of paper which tells me this was from day 14. It was suggested by Trisha, who said it was one of her favourite books of all time. And I believe that Shirley Hazzard was born in Australia but moved to America. Is that correct? I think so. So I am counting this. I think in reality what is going to happen once we get to like the second week of February is I'm going to start reading the books for the Women's Prize for Non-Fiction, which I did a predictions video for, which as soon as I posted it, I instantly like regretted not all of my choices, but I just thought, oh, why didn't I include that one? And why didn't I include this one? And it's just so difficult to do a predictions video. It's so hard. But I'm really hoping that I have at least read, or I already have, most of the books on the long list, which I think 11th of February, is it? I can't remember. Anyway, so I think that's going to be sort of most of my reading for February, but I've got a few other possibilities. I do need to read the book for the Thomas Hardy read along for January, which I still haven't finished. I was kind of floored by illness for most of, well, the middle of the month, so I just didn't get around to it. And I also then need to read, and I forgot to get it off the shelf. Where is it? It's somewhere here. I can't remember. Anyway, the book for February for Thomas Hardy is Two on a Tower, which is a book that I really, really love, but was panned by the critics and is quite miserable. So I will hopefully read that as well. But for the reading challenge, for the TBR reading spa, I will put on the screen the graphic for February. So what we are doing every month is I came up with some prompts, and Kerry came up with this amazing sort of quiz for you to do based on how you feel. So I'm going to do this right now based on how I feel at the moment. I've got the little image here, but I think what I did for January was I just kind of kept taking the quiz, as in different points in the month, to kind of say, how did I feel and what do I want to read next? Which is absolutely how we intend it to be, just kind of whatever you want. So the question for February is, when you think of a good book, how does it make you feel? Is it nostalgic, challenged, or hopeful? And if you pick nostalgic, you're asked, do you ever reread old favourites? If you pick challenged, you are asked, do you journal or keep a diary? And if you select hopeful, then you're asked, do you like to make plans and set goals? And they will lead you to one of several prompts. So basically, if you don't want to do the quiz, you can just look at the 3 prompts and decide to do all of them, or just pick whichever one you want. So the prompts are to read a book that makes you think of the past, to read a book that makes you think of the present, or to read a book that makes you think of the future. This is, I think, one of my favourite set of prompts for any month. I really, really love these. And I think you can interpret this pretty much however you want. I think you can just go with however you interpret that particular thing. So I think some people, when they think of the past, they're thinking of kind of historical fiction, and some people, or historical non-fiction even. And some people, when they think of the future, they might be thinking of non-fiction about AI and technology and science and medicine and futuristic things. Or some people might think of sci-fi. Some people might, for the present, think of contemporary fiction, or non-fiction books that speak about kind of what is going on in the world at the moment. I've decided to go quite personal with this and interpret it differently. And like I said, you can interpret this however you want. So books that make me think of the past, when I looked at my shelves, what I thought about was, I did a degree in medieval history, which I barely mention on this channel. I mention it all the time. I absolutely loved it. And I went to university as a mature student when I was 24. It was an incredibly hard decision to go because I had to give up my house and most of my possessions. I kind of sold or gave away everything and moved into a halls of residence with a bunch of 18-year-olds, many of which I'm still friends with. So it kind of worked out, but it was a really difficult decision. And then to move away from where I was living to the other end of the country. And I went to North Wales to study, and it was, you know, the scariest decision, but the best decision. It completely changed my life, completely. I don't know who I would be now if I hadn't have done that. And when I think of the past, that's one of the things I think of. I don't do anything with medieval history anymore. The PhD that I'm currently doing has nothing to do with medieval history. It taught me a lot because it taught me how to be a historian. That is kind of what I'm researching. I research history, but I don't do anything with it anymore other than kind of the skills that you learn as you're studying history. But I really have such a soft spot for anything medieval. So I looked at my shelves and I picked out 2 books. They're actually both fiction, and they are medieval or medieval adjacent, I will say, that I thought would kind of fit this prompt. So the first one is Cuddy by Benjamin Myers. I bought this at the end of last year, I think, in a second-hand shop, and it's actually got a little signed book plate, which I always love when you pick it up in a second-hand shop. And I believe that this is a kind of retelling of the life of St Cuthbert, who was from the northeast of England, which is where I was born as well. So this is another nod to the past. And I believe that this starts in the kind of 7th century at the time of St Cuthbert and goes right up to the 21st century. So I feel like I guess this kind of fits as medieval, but that's why I said medieval adjacent, because it starts there and kind of goes off. But I've always wanted to read this, and I was really excited to find this in a bookshop. So I'm really excited to hopefully get round to it at some point in the year. These are all just possibilities. Like I said, I will probably be making my way through the Women's Prize books. So I'm not sure I will get to all of these, but they're on my mind anyway. The next one, I think, unless I get completely waylaid by the Women's Prize, this one, as you can see from the fact that it's got a little tassely bookmark, I have already started it. So this is Aline and it's The Mirror of Simple Souls. And it is published from the French. The translator is not listed on the front. Translated from the French by Susan Emanuel. And this is set in the 14th century in Paris, and it's about the Beguines, who are a kind of community of mostly non-religious women who lived by themselves, which is very much my favourite thing in medieval history. But it says on the back, when a wild red-headed girl arrives at the beguinage, pursued by a sinister Franciscan monk, she triggers a chain of events that will shatter the peace of this secluded world, plunging it into grave danger. I started this a couple of weeks ago and then I got ill. And this book is quite intense. It contains a lot of information. It really reminded me, if you've ever read it, of The Name of the Rose by Umberto Eco. Not in any way to do with plot, but the amount of information he includes about medieval history and politics and religion, it's that kind of level of detail, and it was quite a lot when my brain was addled because of this chest infection I had. So I put it down, but I very, very much want to continue reading. I think I might have to go back a little bit to remind myself what on earth is going on. But the red-headed girl did arrive very early on in the book. Really excited. So those are my kind of past books, my medieval books. And so the next prompt to read a book that makes you think of the present. I may end up, I guess, reading the Women's Prize books for that, because it makes me think very much of the present, because they are very much current books on a current award. But I thought I would just highlight 2 books which are on my shelves because I'm reading them technically for my PhD, but they're definitely in the category of this is tangential, so I will pretend it's for my PhD whilst actually just having a great time reading these books. They're both books by the same author. So the first one is Square Haunting, 5 Women, Freedom and London Between the Walls by Francesca Wade. I know lots of people have read this and lots of people tell me it is great. So it is about 5 different women, including women you've heard of like Virginia Woolf and Dorothy L. Sayers and people like that. And it's about Mecklenburg Square, did I pronounce that right? I don't know. And the radical figures of interwar Bloomsbury, which was home. So it's a kind of about these people and this location in London, which is very much kind of home to all of them and lots of other people besides. And it just sounds really fascinating, sounds really interesting. I had always wanted to read it and everyone said it was great. And then I found this in a second-hand shop and I thought, yes, please. And how is it tangentially related to my PhD? Well, it's about authors. Literary history. What I'm writing is kind of literary history. Anyway, the next one is another Francesca Wade book, and that is the biography of Gertrude Stein. So this is Gertrude Stein and Afterlife. I think this is much more related to what I'm actually doing. So I'm researching posthumous publishing, and I think this is much more about kind of literally the afterlife of Gertrude Stein and kind of how her reputation continued. I know nothing else about it other than someone said, oh, this is probably quite related to what you're doing. You should grab a copy of it. So I did. If you've read this, I'd love to know your thoughts. I did pick up a copy of this. Did I buy this new? Oh, I think I did, because they didn't have it in the library. I picked it up last year and I still haven't gravitated towards it. I don't really know much about Gertrude Stein, and I haven't really read any of her stuff or really engaged with anything that she's done. So it's just purely for studying. So these are like present. I should really be doing these. Will she do it though? Probably not. Okay, so the last category, I think, is probably the one that at the moment I'm kind of gravitating towards from these prompts. So when you think of a good book, what does it make you feel? And I think at the moment, I think hopeful. At the start of the year, having, you know, just recovering from illness, just kind of thinking about what the year might hold. I've got that kind of hopeful feeling, I think, at the moment, which leads on to the question of, do you like to make plans and set goals? And the answer to that is very much yes. I do like to make plans and set goals. So read a book that makes you think of the future. I think when you're studying quite a lot, one of the things that you really want to focus on is what you can do when you finish studying. And I am like completely obsessed with gardening and gardens. I don't have a garden because we live in a flat, but living in this flat was not our choice. It was like the only thing available for us. And I grow a lot of things on our balcony. I'm growing bulbs. I've never grown anything from bulb before. I've only ever planted seeds to grow flowers. But anyway, that's a little gardening aside. So what I would like to do when I finish studying is actually do some studying in gardening, like learn a little bit more formally about gardens, so that maybe I can do some more kind of, there's lots of volunteer opportunities, which I'm always on the lookout for. If anyone lives in the area that I do, and you know about any gardening opportunities, let me know. But some of them do require like a little bit more formal knowledge. So I'm actually looking forward to doing that once I finish like my formal kind of boring PhD studies. So anyway, when I think of the future, I think of gardens. So I've got 2 gardening books here I want to tell you about. So the first one is this one, which is A Little History of British Gardening by Jenny Uglow. She is a great writer, and I've read some of her other stuff, and always got some lovely pictures in here. And this is literally exactly what it says on the front. It's just a history of British gardening. But I thought that might be interesting to me. And the other one is The Garden Against Time by Olivia Laing. And I think that this is kind of like a history of gardens. It was written in 2020 when Olivia Laing began to restore a walled garden in Suffolk. And it kind of moves between Milton's Paradise Lost, Derek Jarman's Garden at Dungeness, and I've read a lot about that, and talks about kind of the history of gardens, but also illuminates kind of the possibilities of gardens and what they can be to us. Like, I don't know if that's a good description of it, but that's kind of the sense I get of it from the back. I'd always wanted to read this, and I picked up a copy. I think it was one of the last books I actually bought in 2025. In fact, I think it was actually the last book I picked up. I went into the bookshop to get another book for my studies, and I saw this and I was like, okay, thank you, I'll have that one. So I think this is the most recent acquisition into my library, but it very much gives me that kind of like hopeful thought about the future and what I might be able to study once I've finished writing my 90,000 word thesis. So those are kind of, I guess, my potentials, the ones that I might read in February. If you have read any of these, I would love to know your thoughts on any of them. Let me know what you plan to read in February, especially if you're reading for the TBR Reading Spa. Let me know how that is going. What did you read in January? I will be wrapping up all of the books that I read for the Reading Spa. I'll be doing that in a wrap up. I did intend to vlog the month and kind of update as I go, but then I just got really ill and then kind of like forgot to do, well, I didn't do anything to show you any footage in a vlog, so I'm just going to film a little wrap up. So yeah, let me know all of your thoughts in the comments below, and I will see you very soon in another video. Thank you so much for watching.